All right, Lee, we're in your neck of the woods now. We're talking defensive line. And I'm going to put our number one and number two guys together. And then I want you to tell me the difference, because I don't know how big a difference there is between Byron Murphy, the second out of Texas, and Johnny Newton out of Illinois. Because here's the thing, man. You watch Johnny Newton earlier in the season, you're like, okay, this guy has it. And then you get caught up in Byron Murphy. You're like, okay, he's clearly the best. I don't know that there's a huge difference.
There isn't, right? I called you the other day to talk about this very exact conversation. Because remember at the Senior Bowl, I was more high on Johnny Newton, right? Yeah. And then after breaking down Byron Murphy's film, I was like, nah, I got to put Byron at number one. But then I literally called Ryan like 2 days ago, rewatching Johnny Newton. I was like, dude, it's 1A, 1B. Like, it's that close. I mean, when you look at Byron Murphy, the twitchiness kind of reminds me of Ed Oliver, is his ability to wreck things in the backfield, right? And we talked about this too, Ryan. Maybe Rick can give an explanation. Why do coaches put their best players not in positions to make plays? You got T'Vondre Sweat, who's 362 pounds, but yet you put Byron Murphy at the zero technique, head up over the center. Make it make sense to me. Get this guy on the edge and let him go to work on offensive guards and centers. But the crazy thing is, Byron Murphy's that good. He was so efficient playing the zero, whether it's using his leverage to play the double teams or using that lateral quickness to beat the center off the snap of the ball. So, and then when you look at Johnny Newton, we talked about Latu's hand usage. I don't think anybody rushes better in regards to having a plan than Johnny Newton at the three technique position. Like, he hits you with so many clubs and counter clubs. You go and watch that Kansas game, my goodness, or even that Wisconsin game, they had no answer for him. And you knew that was a guy that was one of the few guys on Illinois' defense that could wreck the game, and yet guys still couldn't block him. So, right, it's hard. Like, I go back and forth. Like, I called you the other day. I'm still going to give the edge to Byron Murphy. I think he's more gifted naturally as a pass rusher, but I think Johnny Newton just rushes so efficient, and he rushes with a game plan every time he gets after the quarterback.
Hey, Rick, let me ask you this. I know what your answer is going to be, but at any point, if you're sitting up there in the suite wondering why T'Vondre Sweat's playing three technique and Byron Murphy's playing zero technique, are you just asking the question to the coaching staff, or are you just going to keep your mouth shut?
No, I'm going to ask. It's my job.
Okay. All right. You will say something though.
Yeah, I'll just ask what's the reason. They may have a perfect good explanation. I'm not a coach. I'm not drawing up the scheme. So I just want to know from my own knowledge.
Gotcha.
Not that I'm criticizing a coach or this or that. They're pretty smart to figure out why they do what they do. So, that like I said, I'll stay in my lane on far as I'm not coaching and I'm not drawing up schemes. So trying to understand what they're thinking and why they do that. So to me, there is a difference between Newton and Murphy. And Murphy, to me, is different because I've never seen a guy with that lower body when he was on stage. I mean, from his hips,
my goodness,
to his thighs, through his calves, were as thick and as developed as I've ever seen. And you can see why he's so explosive and quick twitch. Mm-hmm. And I think there is a difference. And I'm not saying Newton isn't quick twitch, but the one thing that when you're trying to separate these guys that really stuck out to me on tape is when I seen Byron Murphy play versus the run, and he can bend and dip and stand up big offensive linemen. I think Newton gets swallowed up a little bit, especially versus those combo double teams.
Correct.
Where this kid stays square to the line of scrimmage. He is under everybody's pads, and they're not moving this kid. And then you add in the pass rush. To me, that was the difference between the two.
And Leja, you know what's funny? And I asked Byron at the combine when we had him on set, and Rick was staring at his calves. I said, "Is there anyone that you struggle with in the Big 12?" He goes, "No, I didn't struggle with anyone. Cooper Beebe did a pretty good job, but I didn't struggle with anybody." And he was right.
Love the attitude.
Dudes, when they, you have that top. I mean, this kid, it's almost like he drops one knee. It's and then stands everybody straight up, and then he comes out of that.
Yeah.
I just thought that's rare to see that guy's bend and flexibility through his lower body and how developed and thick it is, and then exploding out of that. To me, that's the difference between these two.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. And I think the play that comes to mind is the Alabama play, right? When he's actually at the zero nose and he gets the combo block from the guard center. He literally, like you said, gets on one knee, has great leverage, is able to flip his hip, split that, and make a tackle for loss. And I was like, yo, this dude's out of this world. And then you talked about the explosive ability to not only do that and hold up against the point of attack, but to rush the passer. Like, so yeah, that's why I say it goes back and forth for me, but Byron is my number one guy.
So, Rick, let me ask you this, and Lee J, I want to hear your thoughts. At 8-9, Atlanta, Chicago, is there a chance Byron Murphy's the first defensive player off the board if he's that special?
I don't think they take him that high, just because I like the defensive tackles the young Chicago Bears took last year in the second and third round.
Yeah, Gervon and Zach Pickens.
Correct, and then Grady Jarrett is still out there, and I think they got David Onyemata still for the Atlanta Falcons. So I don't think it makes sense for the Atlanta Falcons and the Chicago Bears. They both need edge help. I think when you look at Byron Murphy, the latest or earliest he could go, looking at the list, 16 to Seattle makes a lot of sense. Obviously, the Rams at 19 for Byron Murphy after losing Aaron Donald makes a lot of sense as well. And then even you can go to Minnesota at 23, which they're probably used to trade up. So,
Rick, no chance that Byron's the first defensive guy?
No.
All right.
None.
All right. I'm going to group our third, fourth, and fifth guys together, and we can talk about them. But just so we can get through this thing. America's defensive tackle, Bradon Fisk.
Because I worked my arse off on comparables.
Oh, yeah. Give us your comp, Rick.
Okay, go ahead.
So let's do these two.
For both players. Let's go.
Yeah. Okay. For Murph, I had Grady Jackson. Or Grady Garrett.
Grady Jarrett. Yeah.
And
Grady Jackson was on Sanford and Son.
Yeah. Shady Grady.
Oh, my goodness.
Grady Jarrett. And who'd you have for Johnny?
We drafted him, Sharif Floyd.
That's actually a pretty good comparison.
Again, that's another cheat comparison, but I'll give it to you. You paid $200,000 for the back work on that. I paid 27 cents to get my comp, so you did good on those.
That's a little bit more than $200,000, bud.
Rick with the flex there, Lee J. All right, look, here's the thing. So Bradon Fisk is our number 3. Everyone on planet Earth loves Bradon Fisk. Ruke Orhorhoro out of Clemson's number 4, and then T'Vondre Sweat, who we just talked about. Rick, let's start here so we don't cheat you out of it. I want to know who your comp is for Bradon Fisk, and then we'll talk about him a little bit.
Okay. Dudes, just so you know, I've had this in my room. Don't compare white guys to white guys.
That's a rule.
Yeah, that's a rule. Yeah, you can't do that.
So I am going to hold off on my comp, but I am going to tell you who Bradon Fisk reminded me of, because they almost had the same arm length.
Okay, he has short arms, and Rick asked him about that at the combine, and he told us, a coach once told me, be good at something if you're not physically gifted as everyone else on the field, and his gift is getting to the quarterback and getting off the snap.
No, you didn't pay attention like you normally don't pay when they have.
What did he say?
He said, I have to beat the offensive lineman to the punch. So, and you see it time in and time out on the tape. He's got great get off, and he's into that chest before those linemen can get their hands or their arms locked out on him.
Correct.
So he can get inside of that offensive lineman's arms, and then he can control them from there. And then I think if you watch the Florida game, I mean, he was like
and in the Louisville game
level. Yeah. But I'm going to go, and then he put on a show down at the Senior Bowl. So I went with Geno Atkins.
Damn it, that was my comp. That literally was my comp, because they were both short body guys, shorter arms. I think Bradon has a little bit higher motor than Geno coming out of college, and Geno had a hell of a career with the Bengals. But that literally was my comp, Geno Atkins.
So, Rick, was Geno a day 3 guy because of the physical stuff?
Because it was back in the day. Everybody wanted, at 5-6 years ago, everybody wanted to stop the run because everybody was coming downhill when we had Adrian Petersons of the world and guys like that. Now it's become a passing lead. These undersized guys have more value because they can rush the passer in line and they can create athletic mismatches versus the guard. I think this kid was better athlete and tested extremely well at the combine, which just rose, that just made him more valuable. And I'm not so sure. And I'm going to ask you this, Deuce, since you're a defensive line expert, you taking Darius Robinson or Fisk if they're both sitting there at the top of the second?
Robinson because of the position flexibility.
Let me add,
but Ryan knows this. I've been high on Bradon Fisk since the beginning. We were at the Senior Bowl when we did the first episode out there. I was like, Ryan, you might want to watch this guy. He's different. At that time, I think people had him as a 4th round pick. I'm like, nah, he's going within the 2nd round at the latest.
Hey, let me ask you this. So let's say you're a team that in the 2nd round that needs a wide receiver and a defensive tackle equally. Are you taking Ladd McConkey or Bradon Fisk?
I'm taking Fisk. I'm taking the defensive lineman because I know there's good receivers. Because I got Pearsall right behind McConkey.
You really do.
That's
you really do.
All right.
Yeah, a lot more receivers than
there is. This is a deep receiver class.
Passer.
Well, look, we have Bradon Fisk ahead of T'Vondre Sweat, who, as you mentioned, Lige, is 360 plus. Are we all in agreement that you're taking Bradon over T'Vondre?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm taking probably – there's some guys I know we have at the bottom of our list. Marcus Harris, to me, that's the flavor for me. It depends on the flavor you want.
At Auburn.
McKinley Jackson, too, in regards to T'Vondre Sweat. I think they're all in the same tier. I just think it depends on the flavor of your scheme that you're trying to play. Let
me ask you, Rick, about T'Vondre Sweat, who outweighs just about everyone in the draft. He's a 2-down player, so you have to understand that. And how does that fit into today's NFL when you're trying to stack these draft boards at the defensive tackle position?
I think when you're in the front office, when you get guys that size, and this kid played hard this year, but what's his history on playing hard down in and down out? And what's his weight history? Because is he a guy that's going to come back to camp after he's been through all this and staying at 360 or whatever he is? All of a sudden he shows up to training camp at 380 and can't move. So you better make sure you do all your background on that. But I do like Sweat a lot. I mean, when you look at those big guys, if he has the football passion and if he's willing to take care and make sure he monitors his weight, then you're getting into, because I think he has the potential to be, is he like the Ted Washingtons of the world, the Pat Williamses of the world, because he has that size. And when he does play, he's a pretty unique athlete for his foot quickness. But then Jordan Davis, who blew out the combine and was a giant of a man, really has struggled and really hasn't hit what I think the potential they thought they were getting with him when Philly took him in the 1st round. And I think Debo moved up to go get him.
Debo doesn't talk about that. Hey, Lige, what's your comp for T'Vondre?
Big Cody from Alabama.
What about you, Rick? Because that's a hard one.
Yeah, I kind of put it, like I said, those big nose tackles, but to me, it's kind of like a poor man's Pat Williams to me, just because I was around Pat.
And the thing is, I just looked it up. He outweighed Dexter Lawrence by over 20 pounds. And so, Dexter came out and you thought, okay, this guy's enormous. He's at least 20 pounds lighter than T'Vondre Sweat and a completely different player, but I'm just trying to find someone in that neighborhood. Phil Taylor came out and he was only 334. So again, finding 366 is tough, and finding a 3-down 366, I think feels impossible at this point. So is there any chance, Rick, that he slips into day 3, or T'Vondre's definitely going to be a third
I think
round?
he'll be Loso go in the 3rd round.
Okay.
Yeah, I think 3rd round is the sweet spot for him.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Let's talk quickly about Ruke Orhorhoro. I can never get his name right. Ruko.
I just put it on the list because that's my
Orhorhoro.
There's 3 rows.
Lige, do you know how to pronounce his name properly? Because I don't want to just.
It's Orhorhoro, right? Orhorhoro.
3 rows.
Is it 3 rows?
It's
yeah,
3
it
rows.
is. Yeah.
Orhorhoro. Okay. Ruke Orhorhoro. Gotcha, Ruke. My bad. All right.
Ruke. Like Juke. Row.
All right. Thank you, Rick.
Oh, God.
All right, Lige, quickly, give me your comp for Ruke and sort of the range you see him going in, because I think he's gotten better over the course from 2022 to 2023.
Yeah, when you look at his game, right, he has all the tools that you need, and he's one of those guys. Rick, they talk about like that's one of the guys you want walking off the bus first, right? This guy's chiseled up now and plays with good strength, has pass rush ability. I think at times, Rick, when you watch him on film, I think he gets in too many personal battles instead of actually just making the play, right? But you love the aggressive nature that he has. I've been going back and forth with his comp. I'm trying to think of a guy that that he kind of reminds me of. I mean, the way he's chiseled up, there's not too many D tackles that look like that coming out. So who's a good comp for him?
Rick, you want to go ahead while Lijay thinks because you did the homework?
Think for a second,
yeah. I think there's just so much upside. Remember, this kid only played 2 years of high school football, and I think we watched him in our summer school last year, and he took another jump this year.
Right.
I think his instincts are getting better at the position. I think he's more productive, but you can't, like Dew said, you can't draw a guy up and like this guy looks. And I think his athleticism jumps off the tape too. It's just, will the dots all connect when he gets to the NFL level? Will A connect to B to C? Because sometimes he goes from A to C without connecting to B first, just from whether it's a lack of play time or not playing a lot of football till he got to college. But the one thing that I always looked at, if it is an instinctual issue, I don't think that's coachable. But if he's improving every year, which I think this kid has, then I think he'll continue to have a high ceiling. Some defensive line coach is going to love getting a hold of this kid. And he may be a rotational guy early in his career, but if they can hit this untapped potential, and if it's not an instinctual thing, which I'm guessing it's not, because I do think he makes some plays off of instincts, I think he's got a really good combination of being able to play the run and rush the passer, but he's a ways away from everybody else. But I do think his ceiling is very high. I had a comp of David Onyemata.
Okay.
It's actually a pretty good comp.
Yeah, and looking at my notes and just trying to refresh my memory here, I wrote that consistent was the best word to describe his game against the run. I thought he was consistently moving guys off the ball, and his pass rush is not quite up to that. But to your point, Rick, that's why you have coaching, and that's why when you're newish to football, there's room for growth. All right, day 2 guy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Done and done. All right. I'll mention quickly some defensive tackles that missed a cut, and then we'll take a break and get to these linebackers here. Dwayne Carter out of Duke, Marcus Harris out of Auburn. I know me and Lijay have talked about him. McKinley Jackson out of Texas A&M. Michael Hall Jr., who might be one of the twitchiest interior defensive linemen. He's just undersized, at least when he gets high in his pad level. And Rick, I'll give you Lijay's under the radar guy, and he thought you might not like him until he realized where this young man went to school. Justin Ibioigi.
Ah, my favorite.
I told you, Lijay.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.